And are we going to save the chat, Ava? Okay. Marva, you're going to be so kind as to take notes for us, right? Great.
Okay, do you want to get started? We
I think
have,
we can. I think we can. I'm going to say again that my name is Diane Mena. I'm the vice chair, and the reason I'm chairing is because Ann is a little bit under the weather today. So you're going to have to be patient with me and Bonnie, who will do our best to get through. Okay, so the meeting, as usual, will happen in two parts. The first part will be about we're going to learn about some longstanding resources in our city, looking at labor through a historical and cultural lens. I think might be a little bit much of a breather from our Medicare woes for a while anyway. We have 5 speakers, so we're going to probably spend an hour on this section. And after this, we'll have the second part, which will be an update on the state of the Medicare Advantage plan. So let me start with the first speaker. We're going to have maybe about 10 minutes for each speaker. And then at the end, we'll do a quick Q&A for the speakers, okay? The first speaker is Paul Cole, Executive Director of the American Labor Studies Center, whose mission is to promote the teaching and learning about the American labor movement and its history in K through 12 schools nationwide. So let's welcome Paul.
Well, thank you. It's a pretty broad mission, but I think we're making progress step by step here. Let me just put a little context here. Why is it important that we teach young people about the history of the labor movement and in schools? Al Shanker once said, you cannot have a free and democratic society unless you have a free and democratic union movement, as well as other free institutions. And I always thought that was pretty profound because it gives us an even more important mission than what we would think. I taught high school social studies for 23 years and never saw any curriculum material come down the line officially through the channels about teaching labor history. So I decided to create the American Labor Studies Center, which has this mission. I do some workshops, but basically it's through our website. Please jot it down if you're not familiar with it. It's labor-studies.org. And if you got about 5 hours, you can wander through it. You got a lot of stuff there. Our goal here is not indoctrination or to proselytize. It's simply to say that democracy cannot exist without trade unions, and people need to understand and know about the history of the labor movement and the role they play in our society. Second point I want to make is should not be limited only to the social studies teacher. As Rachel knows, there are ways you can put it into the arts. You can teach it. Music teachers can teach labor music, obviously economics, English language arts. Teachers can, a matter of selection of topics and so forth. So what I'm going to do basically, hoping you all will visit the website, is just give you some quick and dirty of what you might find there on the website. There's the basic thing, if you can only do one thing, there is a short history of American labor that was produced some time ago, and I did a lesson plan for it. So like me, if you taught world history, the entire history of the world in 38 weeks, you have to talk pretty fast or limit the material that you have. And so here is a short history. There's a lesson plan. A teacher can click on that. They can duplicate it. They can hand it out in 2 or 3 days. They could probably have at least an introduction to what the history movement, the labor movement is all about. There are a lot of other things that are on there as well as the short history. LAWCHA, Labor and Working Class History Association, link on the site is probably the best, most comprehensive site. It puts us to shame in terms of the resources that it has. Rosemary Fewers, I'm sure some of you know, has put that together. So if people are looking for information, I would suggest that probably be the best place to start. Also in the lower right-hand corner, there's an important link people might miss. It's called quick links. And that links to biographies and bibliographies and labor quotes and a whole variety of other things that people can click on. There's a couple of groups that have very good sites. The AFT has a site. If you go to the Share My Lesson section of the AFT, you'll find some very good stuff there. And there are others as well. The California Federation of Teachers, especially LA teachers, have done wonderful work. They actually have one of the few places, along with Wisconsin, to have a law that requires the integration of labor history into the curriculum. The labor the Labor Arts Foundation, I already mentioned, of course. There's also on my website, if you get a chance, there you go, you take a look at it. There's a section on the Labor History Foundation we did with the Canadians, teaching labor history, and what that is a much longer presentation of what I'm doing now. The other thing we've done is, so we were looking for a site here in the Capital District. So we found out about this young woman called Kate Mullaney, who formed the first bona fide all-female union in the country, the Troy Collar Laundry Workers Union. And we got that house designated both a National Historic Landmark and a National Historic Site. It's a unit within the park system. And there on the first, we bought it and we're restoring it. And on the first floor, we have exhibits on labor and a whole variety of things, Kate Mullaney and other things too, many to mention. On the second floor are the offices of the Labor Studies Center, and the third floor is the apartment of Kate Mullaney when she lived there in 1870s, mostly, for the most part. I urge you to look at that. There's also a link to that site, the Kate Mullaney site. And what we're proposing now is in the side yard is to create a memorial to trade union women pioneers, not just Kate Mullaney. And so we have a memorial in place, a proposal for one we're raising money for, and then we will be inducting people like Mother Jones and others, of course, over a period of time, so that people know more about the role that women played in the American labor movement. There are other points I would make. There are other ways to do this. For example, a number of years ago, I worked with the Boy Scouts. So if you have scouters or anything to do with scouting, we created a labor history merit badge that kids, that Boy Scouts can get. And actually out in Buffalo, the UAW brings a bunch of scouting groups together and they go through all the requirements, so the kids end up with a merit badge on scouting. The other group I worked with was the Baseball Hall of Fame. We're coming into the World Series, and we developed a curriculum on the history of labor relations in baseball. Why do these guys have a union? And it traces back to how they were treated originally, and now probably the Major League Players Association is one of the strongest unions in the country. So it's might be just a topic interest of interest to some, not others, but a way to grab kids and bring them into it. And probably the thing that kids enjoy most is there are on the website, there are two simulations. One is a simulation on organizing. When I had taught a class, a 10-week course on labor studies, you divide the class into labor and management and a couple of neutrals, and you go through an organizing process. So they have to sign cards. They have to know they have to get 30%. They have an election and so on. And once they do that, then we move into a collective bargaining simulation. Those are all on the website. You may need to modify them somewhat depending on your students and your course and so forth. But I think that's probably one of the strongest things that can be done. So I will be quite brief. I strongly urge you, if you've not yet done it, to visit the website, spend some time on it, look at all the things that are there. As a parent, share it with your students. If you are a teacher, share it with your students. If you're a teacher of teachers, especially, you have a special responsibility to let people know about this. But the more that people know about it, the more they use it and the more they appreciate it. We get nice comments from all over the country that I never knew there was anything like this. The other thing we do is in the National History Day contest, there's a $1,000 prize And we offer the best entry. It could be an essay, it could be a video on the best entry on American labor history. We've been doing this for a number of years now. And what that does, that encourages literally hundreds, if not more, kids from around the country to enter that contest. And they always have the winners send me a note. And basically they're saying, I never knew any of this. Thanks for the opportunity to do this. And now I know what unions are all about.
Okay, I'm finished. I'm looking for you.
I meant the last thing I'd say, if you have ideas to add to the website or things we can do, let us know. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. That looks like a wonderful website. Makes me want to go back into the classroom. Okay, so the next person we have is Evie Rich, co-founder of Labor Arts in 2000. She's an active member of the PSC Retirees Chapter and a veteran of the Civil Rights Movement, and has been active in feminist education and aging issues. Evie, all yours.
Thank you very much. My colleague, Rachel Bernstein, is here with me this afternoon to introduce you to a magnificent site which celebrates the labor movement and working people. Now, we want to begin by noting that we have a number of exhibits on our website, and we want to focus on a few. We're going to begin by showing you where it says all exhibits. We're going to show you Labor Arts Celebration of the PSC's Defend the Social Safety Net Committee. And we did, in consultation with the members of that committee, an exhibit called Defend the Social Safety Net, which Rachel has put up there for you. Now, we want you at the end of this program to go back and look at everything on our site. But defending the social safety net, particularly now, Medicare, is a big issue. And we list here on the right what's included in the social safety net. And most of you think about Social Security and Medicare, but you don't think about things which help young people in CUNY, like Pell Grants. So please go back and look at that. Now we're going to show you another exhibit, just the beginning, that focus on art and culture. And that exhibit celebrates one of the labor movement's outstanding leaders, Henry Foner. And he and his brother, Mo Foner, are legends in this movement. And as Rachel scrolls down, you see Play It Again, Sam, which is taken from one of the labor movement's great cultural productions. And we want to show you particularly the songs that Henry did with a friend named Norman Franklin. And we're going to play for you a few stanzas of the Song of the Pennies. Rachel, go ahead. Okay. Well, Rachel, I'm having trouble hearing that. All right, so let's move on.
Time for talking
We
while
want
they do the country's chores, but whenever they start speaking up, the greenbacks better pause. So sang the pennies, so sang the pennies. We're a heads-up bunch of fellers, and we won't be turning tail. We don't get much on the market, but our souls are not for sale. And we won't be going jingling down a crooked trail.
Now we're going to move on, and we're going to show you back to our exhibit page. We're going to highlight two of our most important efforts. And they are, first of all, the CUNY contest, which we've been doing with undergraduates at CUNY for about 12 years now. And what we do is focus on work and the undergraduate students at CUNY, 80% of whom are Black and brown students, mostly working class. And we have a contest which provides 2 opportunities for them to show their stuff. And we have winners in nonfiction, fiction, poetry, and the visual arts. And this is where we need your help. Most of you are retired, but most of you have friends who are still working in CUNY. And we would like you to go to your friends and urge them to urge their students to enter this contest. Now, some of you in the audience have already done that, like Jane Mushabek at City Tech, and her students have won a lot of money. First prize is $1,000 in each category, and second prize is $500. So go out there, friends, and get your friend to get the students to apply. Now, another important initiative of labor arts is our Clara Lemlich Awards. And we give these awards every year to women who are 80 years old or more and who have spent their lives promoting social justice issues, okay? Named after Clara Lemlich, who in 1911 at the Great Hall at Cooper Union challenged the men who dominated the labor movement and said, look, she was speaking for the workers in the sweatshops. She said, I'm tired of you talking. We're going out on strike. And our awards are named after her. We have great women every year whom we celebrate. And this year, for the first time since the pandemic, we're going to stream it, and it's going to be a live celebration at the Museum of the City of New York in May. And so we want you all to consider coming to this great event. Now, labor arts grew out of a desire on the part of a young woman named Deborah Barnhart, who came to me and Don Rubin asking for money to create a labor museum. Now, Don had the money, all right? And we had just done an exhibit and a museum opening up the Rubin Museum of Art. Don gave us the money, and we went ahead and we created this website. Remember, ordinary people are our celebrants. The labor movement is in the middle of our effort. And our goal is to have people recognize the important contributions almost always overlooked by ordinary people in the labor movement and in a larger society. Come look at our website and then join the Social Safety Net Committee and other organizations out there that are promoting the great overlooked work that we do. So thank you so much.
Okay, Evie, thank you very much. Looks like a very multifaceted website. And we want to remind people then to tell their friends who are actually still teaching to encourage their students to join, to enter that contest. That's not, that's a pretty good award there, the $1,000 and $500. And also to encourage people to become members of the social safety net here at in the PSC, because they are looking for new members to expand, and even some leadership positions are opened in that committee too. So thank you very much. The next speaker is Bobby Greenberg, who is a tenor with the New York City Labor Chorus and currently serves as its vice president. He's a member of the UFT since 1966, served in various leadership positions in the union. So take it away, Bobby.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I just, got to refer to Evie Rich mentioning Deborah Bernhardt, who was a singer with us for many years. And also seeing Evie on a number of demonstrations over the last couple of years has been incredible. Thank you, Evie, for everything you do. The Labor Chorus was we began 30 years ago, 1993, at a Bread and Roses conference. Our founders are John Sales, Studs Turkel, and Pete Seeger. Pete Seeger remained a strong support of the Labor Chorus over all the years until he passed. The chorus is made up of about 75 members and from about 25 different locals in and around New York City. And the purpose of the chorus is to bring this rich, incredibly rich musical tradition of labor, of U.S. labor and world labor, actually, to working people. It's an incredible effort that we've been led by. Deborah was a great leader while she was with us, but we have it's a number of people who have just worked with us in leadership. I have to apologize for our site, which is under renovation, but it's nyclc.org, and maybe check it out in a month or two when we land with that. What have we done? We basically, at the beck and call of locals in and around New York City, we've performed at every Labor Day parade since we were founded. And a call out to Vinny Alvarez and New York City Central Labor Council. Our offices are provided by Unite. Thank you to them. 1199 has been an ongoing financial support, and the UFT has provided rehearsal space and financial help. We have actually gone beyond our borders. We have traveled to 1997. We spent 2 weeks in Sweden, invited by the Swedish trade unions to tour different labor sites in Sweden. 2005, Canada, Toronto. 2009 in Wales, which was probably the most memorable. We spent 2 weeks with Welsh miners in South Wales in different mining communities, sharing our rich song tradition. And then 2011, invited by the Cuban trade unions, we toured Cuba musically, singing with different groups, including their central labor chorus. So basically, and we're constantly on call for picket lines and union meetings. Unite has always invited us, and we've in fact, just last week, sung at the Triangle Shirtwaist commemoration. We've done that every year for a long number of years. Basically, I think that's it. We are currently looking for new members. We're actually organizing an effort to bring to the chorus members of trade unions of recently active Starbucks and other new burgeoning unions of younger workers. So that's it pretty much. Thank you.
How big are you, Bobby? How big
We're about 75 members and
Okay.
from about 25 different locals in the city and around the city.
Okay, great. So maybe we can hear you at one of these rallies that we'll be planning for the future.
Yeah, you could call us, just use us, it'd be great.
Okay, great. The next speaker is our own Erwin Yelowitz, been president of the New York Labor History Association for over 2 decades. He's been a leader in the PSC since the 1960s and has served as treasurer and as chair of the retiree chapter. So go ahead, Erwin.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Diane. Today I'm wearing a different hat, and it's my pleasure to talk about the New York Labor History Association. We were founded in 1976 as a bridge between past and present, and we're not an academic Labor History Association. Our membership is made up of a diverse group of trade unionists, labor advocates, academics, library professionals, among others, all of whom are interested in advancing the cause of workers and their organizations. And we're located in New York State, thus our name, but our interests are nationwide and they're very broad. They include labor history per se, which is the history of unions and their role in the modern world. But we also are interested in work, the process itself, and how it must be humanized. We're interested in workers, the issues in their lives that range from the workplace, obviously, but also to political, social, and cultural questions. So our concerns are everything that affects labor broadly conceived. Now, we strive to bring the experience of the past to bear on the issues of the present, which we believe will produce real labor education. We don't think that issues can be discussed solely in terms of what is happening at the moment, that to do so is to lose much of the richness of what has happened. And what has happened often is very, very important to what is going on at the moment. We have a variety of activities and resources. We have a comprehensive website with a lively book review section. One of my colleagues has taken that on and turned it into a very, very interesting book review section with new entries almost every month. Our website is a very simple address. I'll put it in chat later, but it's very simple: NewYorkLaborHistory.org. NewYorkLaborHistory.org. So the website is the first place that anyone can go, and they'll find out a lot about us and what we do and our activities. We have programs throughout the year, and they cover a wide range of activities, and I'll mention about them in a moment. We have a newsletter, which is issued twice a year, and we have an annual labor history calendar, which lists all the events and exhibits that take place in May, which is Labor History Month. Labor History Month was declared years ago by a governor, Cuomo the father, Mario Cuomo the father. It's been renewed. I thank Paul Cole, one of our presenters today, because he worked very hard to get another proclamation of Labor History Month. But we declare it May to be Labor History Month, regardless of what the governors say. It's our month, and we use this calendar to publicize all the activities that take place. And there's a very rich number of them, not only in New York City, but also throughout the state. In addition to our programs that change every year, we also have two fixed programs that we repeat every year, and they're very important to us. One of them is the Deborah Bernhardt Labor Journalism Prize. And I'm so happy that Deborah's name keeps coming up, because she was a founder of the New York Labor History Association, one of them. She was also the first director of the Wagner Labor Archives at NYU, which is where the PSC's collection is held. All our papers and records and a very, very interesting oral history project are in the Wagner Labor Archives, which is the official repository of the New York Central Labor Council. So that's where we are. That's what Deborah was the director of that. And there's this program that we do annually is a labor journalism. We give a prize for an article that is an excellent article that reaches out to the general public, not an academic article, but one that reaches out to people around the country and highlight some important topic. And then we also have a panel discussion on some other issue of importance. So that's the Deborah Bernhardt every October. And then in December, we have our only fundraiser. All our events are free, with the exception of this one, which is very cheap anyway. $25 will bring a member to this. But it's our only fundraiser, and it's the John Comerford Labor Education Awards. And Paul, again, is a winner of one of these. It highlights people and organizations which contribute in a significant way to labor education. And we have a long, long list of previous winners. This goes back over 30 years. And it's named after John Comerford, who you probably have never heard of. And that's why we named it after him. He was the leader of the first labor movement in the United States in the 1830s. That movement collapsed in the financial panic of 1837. Comerford lived on for many years after that, but he was largely forgotten because the labor movement did not survive. But he was a very important figure, and as a Labor History Association, we decided we were going to revive him and bring him back into people's minds. So how do we operate? We have an executive board, which is elected by the members, and any member can nominate any other member to serve on the executive board. So we remain open and accessible. We happen to be right now doing our biennial election cycle, so there will be new people joining our executive board. And the board plans the programs, carries them through, and does all the other work that you need to maintain an association. So if you'd like to join us, it won't set you back very much, $20 are our dues. You can go to our website, NewYorkLaborHistory.org, and you could join us there and see a lot more about our association. So thank you very much. Thank you, Diane.
Okay, thank you, Erwin. The final speaker in this section is, I did not see her on the screen. Her name is Laura Carbonell Monarch. Is she here? Is Laura here? She's from the Working Theater. Is Laura here? I don't see her. Okay, so I guess
She's here.
she's here.
Yeah.
Okay, let me introduce her. Laura has been with the Working Theater since 2003, and in 2021, she became producing artistic director. The Working Theater is the only not-for-profit off-Broadway theater company dedicated exclusively to creating and producing new American plays for, about, and with working people. So Laura, where is Laura? Did you see her, Bonnie?
What's Laura's last name?
Laura Carbonell Monarch, M-O-N.
Laura M-O.
Yeah,
M-O-N-A-R-Q-U-E.
she is here.
Can we unmute her perhaps?
She is a co-host. Laura, if you're there, can you unmute?
There we go. Thank you.
Hey, sorry for the technical glitch.
No problem. I was trying to wave, but here we are. So thank you. And thanks for inviting Working Theater to be a part of this with all these wonderful organizations. We are thrilled to join you. So let me just make sure I can share my screen here. And I will get started talking about what we do. So Working Theater is the only off-Broadway theater company existing to serve the labor community. We bring stories for, about, and with working people to the professional stage in New York. Working with our community, we aim to remove barriers such as relevance and affordability so that working people can experience and engage in theater in their everyday lives. We're in our 38th season of creating and producing theater with working people. And we do this through professional off-Broadway productions reflecting lives and concerns of working people. We have a sliding scale ticketing initiative that we've just instituted that allows anybody to access a $0 ticket to any of our productions. And we have several outreach and educational programs that I'm going to talk about that give working people direct access to art making. I'm going to pop our email list and our website in the chat so that you all have access to that. And then I'm going to try to figure out how to advance the slide. Oh, great. Here it goes. So we've got a long partnership with the PSC retiree department. So for those of you who don't know more about working theater after this, you can definitely reach out to Marcia Newfield, Steve Lieberstein, Connie Gemson, Valerie Knight. A lot of folks have been long-term friends of working theater, organized theater parties at our productions, and also participated in our playwriting and performance class Theater Works, which is the photographs that you see on the screen right now. We're in a unique position to represent the labor community in a theatrical way in public performance. And so as we've been navigating this continually changing landscape producing live theater, we just continue to focus on the labor community. So Theater Works is one of the ways we do that. It teaches playwriting and performance skills to working people. We just wrapped up 2 sessions this season, one in partnership with SEIU 32BJ. And also for the first time this season, we hosted an open access Theater Works class where anybody who identified as a working person could join and learn playwriting and performance skills. So we actually had 2 members of the PSC retirees, Connie Gemson and Valerie Knight, participate in that class. And both of them actually had participated in a prior class we collaborated with CUNY with when they were doing the Labor of Care project in 2017. And from that, those 2 plays were featured in an off-Broadway production we did called The Best of Theater Works. Here's some photos from that. So that was actually a way that working people's voices directly translated to the professional off-Broadway stage. We produced 7 of those short plays in 2020. It was actually the last play we produced right before COVID-19 put everything on hold in March of 2020. And I just want to highlight some quotes from Theater Works participants from the past. Some folks said, I learned to speak in public with confidence. I never knew that doing theater work could change the way I feel about my job. It's a place to speak out about things you can't talk about at home or on the job. You relieve your stress by writing about it. I learned to face people and not be shy. We've offered Theater Works program for 20 years. And we really just love the program and the impact it has, not just on the participants, but also the plays that have come out of it have been really remarkable. So we're going to host another open program in next fall. So I'm going to pop our mailing list again. If any of you have playwriting aspirations or just want to explore what it might be like to put your stories down on paper and see and collaborate with professional theater makers, there's going to be more information about that coming out in the coming months. So I would definitely encourage you to take a look at that. One of the other things that has come out of this Theater Works offering has been a program we call the Mark Pleasant Commission Fund. It was instituted in honor of our late artistic director, Mark Pleasant, who many of you maybe are familiar with from the many years that he led the organization. And this fund offers first-time professional playwriting commission and a mentorship, as well as development resources for people who identify as working people who have not previously been able to identify or practice as artists. So here are some photographs from the last couple of years. We've been offering a public reading of these new plays that have come out of this program and furthering the development of these new works. That's called the Mark Pleasant Commission Fund. I want to talk a little bit about some of the work we did over the past few years when the theater industry has been sort of in flux and folks have been slow to return to in-person performance. We had to do as many arts organizations did, a sort of re-examining of our practices and the purpose and our mission, and sort of re-examine why the arts were still so important. And we felt that, yes, of course, our immediate attention was focused on keeping our families safe and healthy. But we also saw so many working people just continuing to do their part to serve their communities, but also risking their own lives to keep their communities safe and functioning. So what we did at that time was just try to amplify the voices of the labor community, what we always do. So as folks began to have sort of a new appreciation for what we started calling essential workers, which we all know working people are essential for long before the pandemic, right? But it seemed there was a new highlighting of the work that folks in our community were doing. So we started doing a series called Labor Stories, an online series interviewing folks who are on the front lines and sharing what these folks might want other people, other New Yorkers to know about them as workers. So starting with that, then we started digging our heels back into professional producing, and we actually produced the first piece of digital theater that was presented on a full, this American Dreams. It was a first piece of digital theater presented on a full union contract with Actors Equity Association during the pandemic in September 2020. It was called American Dreams, and we partnered with 8 arts and educational institutions across the country to bring this to the stage in September 2020. In May 2021, we teamed up with a local news organization called The City, if you guys are familiar with The City. It's a real local journalism, online journalism organization. And we teamed up with them and the artist Reza Salazar to present this play Missing Them, which was a live digital theater event that built on the city's collaborative journalism project to name every New Yorker lost to COVID-19 and to tell their stories. We ran storytelling workshops for the families of folks that we were memorializing in the show and helped them write and perform their own tributes. Right now, we're marking the 3rd anniversary, if you can all believe it, of the pandemic and also of this project. There's a photo installation in commemorating folks and also the folks, how our lives have changed and how we've survived post-pandemic. So there's a beautiful photo installation at the Bronx Documentary Center and at Greenwood Cemetery through the end of May. And there may be a potential for more live performances of this production. So again, I'd invite you to join our mailing list and learn more about this project as well. So we, as I mentioned, are dedicated to telling different stories of working people through the professional stage. A couple of recent projects that we've produced that the PSC retiree theater group has come on out and supported. One is called 7 Minutes. This was a real labor-centric play we did in collaboration with Waterwell, about 11 women elected to the union council of their Connecticut textile factory who are faced with a very important decision to make when new ownership takes over the factory, and the entire play unfolds around these discussions in the union negotiating room in real time. That was last March. And then last April, we did a celebration of labor through folk music in songs about trains in collaboration with Radical Evolution in the New Ohio Theater. This celebrated the multicultural workforce that built the US Railroad. So some of the unsung stories, the ones that we aren't used to hearing in our traditional, perhaps history books. We highlighted those stories through folk songs and movement and some text. This month, we're diving back into a project called the 5 Boroughs, 1 City Initiative. This was instituted in 2014. It's a multi-year program that teams commissioned professional playwrights and directors with working class communities in each of New York's 5 boroughs. And the goal is to tell the stories of different neighborhoods, of different communities of working people across New York. Those stories are really informing the process of creating theater so that by the time we present and produce an original work, it's rooted in the cultural identity of these neighborhoods across New York. And we ask folks in these neighborhoods, what are your hopes, dreams, challenges? What do you want the rest of New York to know about your neighborhood? So most recently, the piece here that has been the current commission that we have through the Five Boroughs Initiative is called the Blue Parts. It examines the intersection of the Russian-speaking Jewish and Pakistani immigrant communities in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn. So we're going to host 2 developmental readings of the latest script in June 11th and 12th, both in Brighton Beach and Manhattan. So I hope that some of you who maybe are unfamiliar with working theater will join us. Here's some of our social media handles. If you all are on social media, I hope you'll join us here or on our mailing list, or check out our website, or feel free to ask some questions. And if on our websites, where you will learn all about our upcoming programming, and we'd love to see you at the theater. Thank you so much.
Okay, Laura, thanks. Many of us have attended productions in the past, so many of us may already be familiar with your work. But it's always fun. So hopefully we'll, get out a little bit more since COVID.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a few minutes before we start the second part of our agenda. We would like to take that time to do any questions that you may have for any of our speakers. There are 5 different speakers, so if you want to ask a question, if you can raise your hand, your virtual hand or your regular hand. Ava, I can't see everybody all at once, but I'm sure Ava can help me with that. Does anyone have any questions for Paul or Evie or Bobby or Erwin or Laura regarding what they've told us about their various organizations? I'm looking for hands.
Please raise your Zoom hands if you have a question.
Okay, not seeing any. Oh, we see, I see Jane Mushabak. Jane, can you ask your question?
Sure, I really, this is a question. First of all, I want to say thank you for these wonderful presentations. What fabulous, each one right after the other. And I want to say this is really a comment to Abby Rich, that contest that she was talking about, labor arts, is the most fabulous opportunity for faculty actively teaching folks who want to give their students a great leg up on feeling confident, and cash prizes. Everything she described is true. It's a phenomenal experience to get your students to submit, and it's fun. They love it. It's their kind of thing. So the way you submit it. But I just have a quick question for Laura about working theater. I love that presentation, and I want to send it to somebody. Will it be on your website, or how can I inform some people who would love to know more about it?
I don't know that I have it recorded anywhere. I know this session is recorded, so maybe we can talk to the facilitators here, or I'm happy to put together something. We have an institutional video that's pretty easy to share as well. So why don't I drop my email in the chat, and we can sidebar, and I can absolutely send that to you.
Thank you so much. It was really fascinating to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My goodness, great.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jane. Evie, how about you? You have your hand up? Oh, you have to unmute.
Let me say that labor arts works very closely with 3 of the other groups that are represented here on the panel today. I'm talking about Paul Cole and the American Labor Studies Center. Rachel Bernstein, my co-founder, one of my co-founders at Labor Arts, is on the advisory committee at Paul's organization. And Paul was honored, and Erwin Yelowitz didn't tell you this, by the New York City Labor History Association with the Comerford Award. The other thing I want to say is that we work very closely with the labor chorus. Now, how do we do that? We have an exhibit on labor arts about the labor chorus with some of their songs. And I urge you to go and listen to them. They are wonderful. we had a rally on Friday resisting the transfer to Medicare Advantage, and some of the members of the labor chorus sang, and they were wonderful, inviting people in the audience to join them. This is a collaboration of labor organizations all going to the same place, and that place is recognizing the overlooked contributions of ordinary people and the contributions we make to the society. So we want to tell you that again and again and urge you to participate. And remember, the social safety net of the PSC is looking for members, people who want to be troublemakers like us, who will reach out and stand up for retirees. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for any of the speakers? Dave, go ahead. Dave Cuddlechuck.
I just wanted to say, with regard to Evie, I asked her in the question on the chat, when the Clara Lemlich Awards are. And I just want to make sure, and people may not have noticed it in the chat, but the awards are scheduled for May 19th at 4 p.m. And Evie, as I understand it, this is being streamed, right? Or is it in person?
Yes.
Is it streamed? Will it be streamed?
Yes, they'll be streamed as well.
Okay, good. I've been to them before, and I look forward to going to them again this year.
Okay, we have Bob Greenberg with a hand up.
Just mention those of you who would like, you can, as Edith said, check out Labor Arts to hear some of our songs. But we will be singing at the Clara Lemlich Awards. So if you want to hear us live next time, you can attend those awards. Thank you.
Great. Linda Forrester. You have to unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Yeah, I want to thank you all. These were great presentations. Really, everybody is doing such good work. And I particularly wanted to ask Bob Greenberg about what all is the music that you're doing. I've been thinking about getting involved in a chorus, and I just wondered what's your repertoire? What do you sing?
Well, our repertoire is over 60 songs, but we're at any one time, we have about 20, 25 that we're working. It's some old stuff going way back to the early years of the labor movement, some contemporary new stuff, some traditional. It's really very some jazz and some a lot of folk oriented music, but every song is oriented towards working people and their contributions to a life worth living, basically, and how they are at the heart of human life. So and including the environment, so a number of new environment songs. So if you're interested, as I said, the site is under renovation, but I will put in the chat my personal email, and if you're interested in joining us, you can email me. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Lolly, why don't you ask your question?
Actually, I don't have a question. I just want everybody to know that we would love to have you join the Social Safety Net Working Group. And we have our own email address, which is ssnwg@pscmail.com. Please join. I'll put that in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, and I think you had a question in the chat about the recording, which I believe, Ava, can be available to people. Yes, we'll send out an email with the link.
Yeah, it always goes on YouTube a few days after the meeting, and we send it out. But you can all see all the back meetings of the retiree chapter on the PSC YouTube channel.
Okay, great. And could they get that also from the PSC website under retiree chapter?
Good question.
Yes, it's there.
Okay. Bill would probably know the answer to that question. Bill, speaking of the devil, unmute, Bill. Unmute.
Yeah, sorry. Just Lolly mentioned that mailing address is pscmail.com. Lolly, I believe it's pscmail.org.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure that people get the correct address. And I don't have a question, but I was really excited by all these presentations. People were just terrific.
Thank you, Mr. Webmaster. Nancy Romer? Unmute, Nancy.
Hi, as long as people are getting notified about other groupings within the union, also the retiree chapter is the sponsor of the Environmental Justice Working Group. And if you're interested in working with us, right now we're really focused on both on CUNY, getting CUNY to decarbonize, and also working on state and city legislation on climate justice. If you're interested, put your name in the chat and just write next with EJ, and I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nancy. Okay, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we don't really have yet our part 2 speakers. So what I'm suggesting is that we take a 10-minute bathroom break and come back at 10 after. Yes, Ava.
We could look at the slides and hear people's feedback from the rally.
Okay, let's do, well, so we're not allowed to go to the restroom then. Okay. How about we do 5 minutes to the restroom and we come back in at 5 minutes after and we do our slideshow from our Friday rally and we hear some reactions for the rally, okay? All right, so we'll be back in 5 minutes. And maybe you could show it, Ava.
I'm taking advantage of the restroom break as well.
Okay, see, we're not the only ones with weak bladders.
Yes. Now, I did the first part that I was involved with as a speaker, so now we're going to the second part, which is the Medicare Advantage. But they're taking a 5-minute break between the two sections. So everything went fine. What was going on?
She said that there were accidents on the road. And they had late.
It was very.
And I told her, she told me.
12:15 on
She
this.
then went to Sandy. Things like that. I said, that's it.
Let me see you walk.
Depends on how long I've been sitting. But you see, I'm not walking straight. I'm kind of stumping. You know, everything.
Yes, you are, and you could just, if you walk, stretch your legs, you won't stop. You just walk very.
It's because of the stiffness in the hips that I'm stumping. Anyhow, I'm not hearing from Dory, so I'm forgetting about her.
Do you want me to start the slideshow?
Let's give people 1 more minute.
David, both Dean and Donna need a link to get into the meeting.
Oh, okay. I just sent it to Dean.
Okay, Donna too.
Debbie's here. I let her in.
Okay, can you guys let people in while I send it to Donna?
Yes.
And then you can start the slideshow.
Okay, for those of us who are just joining, unfortunately, Anne is not here today. She's a little under the weather, so I'll be chairing the meeting. My name is Diane Mena. I'm the vice chair, and Bobby Nelson, the secretary, will be helping out, and our fantastic staff person, Ava Farkas, will be helping us as well. The second half of the meeting will be on Medicare Advantage plan. I know Debbie is here, and we're waiting for James Davis, Dean Hubbard, and Donna Costa. And in the meantime, we're going to see some of the photos from our wonderful rally on Friday. How many people were at the rally? There were, oh, here comes James. There were about 100 PSC people and about 100 of our colleagues from other organizations. So it was quite successful. And we're seeing some slides from that day, which was a little chilly.
About 425 people, Diane.
Were there? Thank you.
425 people.
Wow, that is impressive.
Yes.
We want to thank everybody who helped out, those people who did, Bob, who did phone banking. We had wonderful speakers, including Evie and Cecilia McCall, who did a great job with the speeches. We want to also thank the people who did the outreach for us, Nancy Romer, Jim Pearlstein, Dave Cuddlechuck, John Hyland, and of course, Ava, all did a great job with connecting with the other organizations. And we had a lot of people doing phone banking for us in preparation for that.
Diane, do you want to see if anybody wants to share their?
Yeah, please, let's do that. If anybody wants to tell us how they felt about the rally on Friday. Here's Myra.
Well,
yeah, you have to unmute yourself, Myra. I guess she's not seeing us.
You want to go to Evie?
Yes, go ahead, Evie.
this rally brought together several groups, all designed to do the same thing, which is to get the mayor to rescind his support for this transfer of us to this Medicare Advantage program. Now, not only was the PSC well represented, but also we had people from the New York City chapter of Americans for Democratic Action. We had all the Kroc people. We had people from Marianne Pizzatola's group, the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. We had people from co-ops across the city. And let me say this to you, friends, this is just the beginning, because we are going to show this mayor that he has made a terrible mistake. And I hope in this meeting this afternoon, we will talk not only about our individual concerns, but about how we as a group of retirees can come up with responses to the situation that we're now in. And what do we mean by that? We have from May 1st to June 30th, allegedly to opt out of the transfer. Now, the Marianne Pizzatola's group has already started litigation against this move. And I'm confident that we will move forward there. But we have to do some other things too. So I have a minute. First, the controller, Brad Lander, he says there's nothing he can do. I want you to know, I don't believe that. There's a lot he can do. The public advocate, Jermaine Williams, is on our side. He was at the rally on Friday and spoke very well. The city council people, many of them talk out of both sides of their mouths. And we have to know that we have a lot of weapons in our arsenal. A major weapon is the fact that there's so many of us. There are 250,000 of us with another 100,000 dependents. And you know what else we have on our side? Our vote. And we need to remind these elected officials that we will use every weapon at our disposal, because to put us into this plan is to deny old people like me access to the health care that I need, earn, and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Renata, you have your hand up? Unmute. Ava, Renata?
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know I could unmute myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Give me a second. I was waiting for you to let me speak. So, yes, I was there. It was really quite exhilarating. And I'm very happy to hear the number 425. That's very good. And while I was there, I had an idea about something we might do that would be more dramatic and eye-catching and maybe draw press. I was reminded of some of the actions we did in the women's movement in the 70s.
Mhm.
And one of the things that came to mind is we threw, I think it was soiled sanitary napkins at a government building, on some government building steps. I don't remember which building, but I remember the drama of that event. And it occurred to me that maybe we could stage a throwing of canes. You can get a cheap cane at CVS that you're ready to throw away, and just bring a lot of canes to throw at a government building, say City Hall or something that's really accessible.
Yeah.
For some drama in the situation.
Well,
And
we've been talking a little bit about some direct actions like a die-in and other actions. So that's more to come. We will be organizing more dramatic actions in the future.
All right, die-ins are being done and I understand their value. I just wanted to throw in this a little more dramatic thing.
Yes, it's a great
about
idea.
tossing canes. So remember my canes.
Okay, I see Judith Klein. Can you quickly respond? Because then we have our speakers ready.
Yeah, I have a question. I have friends who are in both the CSA and the UFT. They don't know anything about what's been going on. Apparently, their chapters have not been informing them of the proposed changes to healthcare retiree situation. I would think that one of the things our leadership must do is to reach out to these two unions and say, for God's sakes, join us. We're all in this together.
Yes, okay, so in an attempt to move us along then to that part of the agenda, we want to start with James Davis. Is James here? He's not here.
Hi,
yet.
Diane. Hi, everyone. Yes, I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Great. Yep. Go ahead, James.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm joining you from the offices of Senator Robert Jackson because, as you may have heard, the state budget is late this year. So we are here pushing right up through the bitter end. And I'm happy to have a second to join with you all because, those photographs that you showed from the other day, they were beautiful and they're empowering. And the fact is that if the mayor is going to change course on this, it will really be because of the surge of resistance from retirees. Those of us who are in elected union positions have been, I think, different degrees struggling to try to raise awareness, back to Judith's point, about what's at stake and the choices that are being made. But it's really going to be the grassroots pressure that changes the position that any of these elected officials have taken. I wanted to take one step back and just to take stock of where we are right now on this struggle, and I think where we need to go next. And others have spoken to this already, and there are some things I want to make you aware of from PSC Central as well. So I sort of think about this struggle as entering its third phase right now. The first phase, we were really trying to defeat the very concept and the proposition of moving retirees into using a privatized retiree health plan as the mechanism for saving the city money on healthcare to begin with. That in itself was really worth fighting. And obviously we didn't win the war, but I think we actually changed the terrain of struggle along the way. The second phase was, once it became clear that the Municipal Labor Committee and the city were in agreement that, that the privatized Medicare Advantage plan was the solution for healthcare savings. The next phase really had to do with trying to carve a path to prevent retirees and their dependents from being prevented from retaining senior care. And in a way, I think we're still in that phase, because what we saw in the last couple of weeks, right, was the revelation that there was a provision within the very contract itself that would have provided retirees to continue on Medicare and premium-free Medigap public plan. The very fact of that provision and that option within the contract was, I would say, surprising to many of us in the MLC member unions, and I dare say to the public as well. And I think now, we can't, as other folks have said, we can't give up on that piece of trying to preserve that access to Medicare and premium-free Medigap. And I also think that our tactics need to shift now, because the mayor has made clear what his plans are. But as Evie and others have already said, there's a window until really from all of May and June, where retirees are going to be making decisions about whether to opt out or stay in. And I think our task is really twofold. One, I just feel as the president of the union, we have an obligation, and our welfare fund has an obligation to try to communicate as clearly and consistently as possible, so that every retiree and every retiree in training has the opportunity to make informed decisions. So, I think we can do that without promoting or serving as an advertisement for the Aetna plan, but I think we have an obligation to be very clear in directing people to reliable information about what the plan entails and what it does not, and what everyone's options will be if they decline to stay in the Aetna plan. But I think, and others have spoken to this, we also need to maintain pressure politically outside of that role of communicating. We need to maintain pressure politically on the outside. And I guess I have to confess, I have a slightly dimmer view than has been expressed here about what the comptroller can do or is likely to do, but I don't think that means that anyone should relent on maintaining the pressure on the comptroller. The public advocate came out, which was terrific. We've been in regular communication with him throughout the process, and I know that hearing from all of you also raised his awareness of what's at stake in this issue. And I think you're right also to continue to maintain communication with city council members. For me, one of the priorities now is to try to find a way so that if any retirees or their Medicare eligible dependents opt out of the Aetna plan and decide to purchase a Medigap plan on their own in order to not be enrolled in Medicare Advantage, we're trying to work out a way to preserve welfare fund benefits, because that is a huge issue. If people who opt out lose their Part B reimbursements, lose their IRMA reimbursements, that's awful. That's a lot of money. But if they, in addition to that, lose their welfare fund benefits, that's still yet another sacrifice, and we want to try to prevent that. So I've been working both on the welfare fund side and communication with welfare fund leadership and council, and also this afternoon we're going to be meeting with legal counsel for the union and others to figure out a way to modify the governing documents, in the union's case, the collective bargaining agreement, so that there's a way to preserve welfare fund benefits, because as it's currently written, the eligibility for welfare fund benefits is tied to being enrolled in a city provided plan. And so this is a particular urgency right now. And obviously the next steps, politically, I think we're glad that there's the possibility of litigation, but I think we all know that we can't hang our hat strictly on litigation either. So that's all I'll say for now. And I know Debbie Bell is here, and current Executive Director Dean Hubbard has also joined us. So I'm happy to answer questions and hear from all of you as well. Thanks.
Okay, so do we want to hear from Dean first and then Debbie? That's what we had planned. We want to continue with that? Dean, are you
Sure,
here?
I don't have a lot to add to what James just said. I'm happy to answer any questions or try to answer any questions that come up in terms of our political strategy or what's happening in the legal arena. But I think James did a really excellent job of sort of summarizing where we're at right now in terms of the political struggle.
Okay, well, let's go to Debbie and then we'll take questions from the members. Debbie?
Maybe we should find out if James needs to leave, if anybody wants to ask him a question before he has to do that.
No, it's okay. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, are you here? I know I let you in, so I know you're here somewhere. Ava, do you see Debbie?
You may have to make her a co-host so she can unmute herself.
I thought we did that. Hold on. Just be patient with us.
Okay. Can
Go
you
ahead.
hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Ava. I'm going to talk for a few minutes because I assume there are some members, chapter members who are here who weren't part of the meeting last week. So I want to go over sort of what lies ahead briefly in terms of the changes in healthcare. We are also putting together information to put on the retiree website, and we will continue to offer information. What is happening now is that as of September 1, all Medicare eligible retirees and Medicare eligible participants will be automatically enrolled in the Aetna New York City Medicare Advantage plan. The only ones who won't be, only one other plan will remain. That is HIP VIP, which is a Medicare Advantage HMO, which maybe a few members are enrolled in now. The Aetna Medicare, New York City Aetna Medicare Advantage plan is a group plan that is somewhat different than both the current Aetna plan that people may be enrolled in, and those people will be shifted over to the group plan. It is also different from the Aetna individual market plans that people all over the country sign up for. There is no premium. PSC retirees will continue to be covered by the PSC CUNY Welfare Fund for their prescription drug benefits, dental, vision, and hearing. So when you see Aetna material that talks about prescription drugs, that will not apply to you. Dependents of Medicare eligible retirees who are under age 65, and this is important, will all be moved into, as of September 1, the GHI CBP plan. Even if they're not in it now, they will be shifted over to the GHI plan. That plan in turn will likely change come January 1 of 24. Dependents of retirees who are in HIP VIP will be moved into the HIP HMO plan. All current retirees who are under 65 and who are therefore not yet eligible for Medicare will remain in their current plans through the end of 2023. Senior care and all the other plans other than HIP-VIP will no longer exist as of September 1. The New York City is not currently offering any supplemental plan to traditional Medicare. That's part of what we were out there rallying for on Friday is the city has to establish a supplemental plan for people to enroll in order for it to be premium free. All New York City retirees who are Medicare eligible should have received a letter from the Office of Labor Relations describing all this. I will say I never did. My husband never did. So there's no reason to think that, there's reason to think other people may not have. Aetna will reportedly send out 2 big packets of informational material during April. So keep an eye open for that. In addition, you should go on the New York City Employee Benefits website and update your mailing address to be sure they have the correct one. There are sort of the contact information I'm going to refer to is maybe going to be screen shared today. And if not, it will be up on the retiree webpage. I sent it to Bill Friedheim to post. So what alternatives do retirees have at the moment? Either to join HIP VIP, which, as I said, is a Medicare Advantage HMO, is limited geographically to the New York City metropolitan area, and is an HMO, and therefore has a limited number of providers. Or you can opt out altogether from New York City health coverage, remain in traditional Medicare, which pays 80% of the Medicare rate, purchase a Medigap plan, which would cover the additional 20%, and pay the coinsurance and deductibles as established by Medicare and the plan. Dependents of retirees who opt out of New York City coverage altogether will lose their coverage altogether, whether they're Medicare eligible or not Medicare eligible. So if you as the retiree opt out, everybody else who uses your health insurance will lose it. Now, based on our meeting last week, I wanted to try to summarize the issue of how to make a decision. And this is going to be a subject of much more discussion. First of all, there is, as James alluded to, there is an opt-out period. Unlike in 2021, the opt-outs will be done through Aetna, not through the City of New York. And your old opt-outs are in the garbage, they don't apply. So this is a new issue. Between May 1 and June 30th, you can call or email Aetna to opt out. I must encourage you to wait, both because things are changing. We have to learn whether the welfare fund will be able to offer benefits to retirees who opt out. And because each of you, if you are considering opting out, has to do a lot of homework to figure out, does it make sense? Does it make sense in terms of your healthcare needs to opt out? Does it make sense financially for you to opt out? So there are lots of materials to look at. There is, and again, this will be up on the website. There are materials on the retiree chapter website. There are materials that the Office of Labor Relations has posted on its website. Aetna will be sending materials. Aetna also has on its website, and that website and phone number are in the contact information. They have scheduled information sessions that you can sign up for and where you can ask questions. They have a phone number you can call and ask questions. They have a website that you can navigate and figure out if your doctor or provider is covered in the New York City Aetna MA plan. In addition, the PSC and the Welfare Fund are going to be scheduling at least one, possibly two information sessions. So part of the exercise is think about who your doctors are, try to figure out if they're in the Aetna plan, And Aetna is a national plan. It goes across the country, and the website will give you information as to whether those providers are in the plan across the country. Consider the costs of opting out of New York City coverage. I'll give you a kind of ballpark around which to think about it. For each retiree, a very rough median estimate is that it will cost about $6,700 a year to opt out. That for two people is, north of $13,000 a year. Why? Because you'd have to buy a new supplemental plan, and the price on those varies enormously. You will no longer receive the city reimbursement of Medicare Part B and IRMA if you pay IRMA. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to look at your material from Social Security. Your Social Security benefit every month is reduced by a Medicare Part B contribution, which is the same for everybody. It's worth about $2,000 a year. If you are, based on your tax returns, they may charge you a little, somewhat more, called IRMA. The city also reimburses that amount. There is also, you have to consider that if the welfare fund does not change the structure of its benefits so that those who opt out can enjoy them, there will be costs for buying a Part D drug plan and for replacing dental, vision, and hearing services if that's what you choose to do. In addition to the median costs that we can estimate easily, there will be deductibles in these plans. There will be co-pays in these plans. It's important to really begin to look at what is being offered out there in the market. So we on the material, in the material I've given to Bill to post on the webpage is all this contact information for Aetna, all the contact information for the city, and for the Medicare Rights Center, which is a national organization that advises retirees on Medicare plans and their rights and their costs, regardless of location. There is also on that list a website for New York State plan to understand New York State Medigap plans. Supplemental plans are regulated by the states. In New York State, a pre-existing condition is not a barrier to buying a supplemental plan. Around the country, it varies from state to state. In addition, people asked last week, can you opt out and then re-enroll, or can you choose to opt out later on after you go into Medicare Advantage? And the answer is yes. There are periods within the year when you can choose to opt back into Medicare Advantage. There are periods in the year when you can opt out of your current coverage and change your current coverage. If you've never done it before, you also have a one-time opportunity as a former city employee to change coverage, regardless of the formal periods of time. The one thing to keep in mind is that your right to Medicare coverage is permanent. How that's structured, whether it's through this private Medicare Advantage plan or through the plans that the city provides, you do have a right to it, and your right to buy a Medigap plan can be constrained based on the state you live in and where you're trying to buy that plan. We will be posting and reporting on more specific information on how to do these things as time goes on. But the most important thing is you really have to do some homework and figure out, what your healthcare needs are, what plans work for you, and continue to stay engaged with the rest of the chapter and active with the rest of the chapter in pressing for alternatives. There are alternatives that are possible. And as the beginning of the discussion pointed to, pressure on the mayor to go out and establish a supplemental plan that's premium free is going to be accomplished because there are more and more people in the retirees in training in the streets saying this is absolutely important. We don't want to privatize our Medicare. And I'm happy to try to answer questions and collect questions and share answers as they come in for you. Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, thank you very much. It's a lot for us to digest. We're now going to take questions, and I'm going to ask you, you did such a good job last time trying to keep your questions general enough so that it benefits other people than just your own personal experiences. If you have personal questions, you can put them in the chat. Debbie looks at the chat, she responds to these questions, and we have other places for you to get answers as well. So if you have a question, please try to make it general enough so that other people can benefit from the information. And please keep it down to 90 seconds. Bonnie will have the, will take the time, or we'll look at the time, and please try, because we don't have that much more time left for our meeting. Other people have to go to other meetings, and so please try to keep your questions to 30 seconds, okay? So let's start with Joel Schwartz. Can you unmute yourself, Joel? You need to unmute yourself. Joel Schwartz, Ava, I think you might have to.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, very good. I asked a question on a meeting last week, and it occurred to me afterwards, after reading the Times, that Professor Hakeem Jeffries, who is the most powerful Democrat in the House, and he's the minority leader there, he had some contact with the mayor, who I don't know whether he's a Democrat or what he is. And I think it's time now the union should stop basking in the history, which we learned a lot about today, or a little bit about, and start using demonstrations are fine, but as the French have learned in France, they're somewhat not as productive as we'd like them to be. And I think that we could go to Hakeem Jeffries and leading Democrats, national Democrats as well as local Democrats, representatives, and try to prevail upon Eric Adams. Do we want the Democratic Party, the party that gave us Medicare, now to have it privatized? And quite frankly, I think if they're successful here, they'll drain Medicare, and we will not have Medicare in a few years. And I think that has to be considered. And I think that's the kind of pressure that can be applied by a union. The other thing is, so one thing is collective action, because I get floods of solicitations from not only Jeffries, but other leading Democrats who want money. And I think I individually can't be as effective as the union. And the second thing is, if we finally have to get Medicare, we're a large enough.
Please, Joel.
Yeah, I just wanted to make this point, and someone brought it up the last time. I think it'd be much more effective if it's done collectively rather than one individual searching around for some kind of medical plan. And I think it would be incumbent upon the union now, because we've supported the union in this fight, and we appreciate this, I think.
Thank you, Joel.
Okay, so collective.
Let's let James maybe respond to that one, Joel. Okay, is James still here?
I am. There was a lot there. Thank you, Joel.
Yes.
Right. I mean, on the last point, right, I don't think the union wants to throw everybody individually off the deep end to figure out everything on their own, but we don't want to be in the business of making recommendations. We're not an insurance provider ourselves. We don't want to make a recommendation for what any individual should do. We want to make sure everyone has the information they need to make the most informed decision. In terms of the politics of this, look, I mean, I'm happy to try to get to Hakeem Jeffries, Senator Schumer. Maybe this is an opportunity, well, for many others, nationally, like you said. And at the same time, I think that, as I said before, all of that will hinge on whether there is grassroots pressure on the outside, and whether it's a demonstration, as happened the other day, or other forms of outreach and outrage. That's gonna be the thing that drives the responses. But I appreciate that suggestion about going to our national leaders with the very pointed question. And I want to put something into a context here that I think will be helpful, because this is where I feel like going back to other members of other unions and even other union leadership in the city is critical. Because when you look at the difference between the savings that the city is going to achieve by putting everyone into a Medicare Advantage plan, right? All 250,000, they're hoping to achieve $600 million in annual savings, versus if there were to be an option C, and let's say, 60 or 80,000 of those retirees decided to retain traditional Medicare. The difference in savings for the city is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million. It's not a small amount of money, but if you look at that in the scheme of the city budget, it's less than 0.3% of the entire city budget. And so I just think the political framing on this, as we continue to talk not just to our elected officials, but also to our friends and colleagues and allies in labor around the city, is for what? For what is this being done? To save less than 0.3% of the city's $102.7 billion budget. It's just wrong. And so, I think we have to hammer away on that. In the meantime, I'm happy to try to reach out to the national leaders that you've recommended. Joel, thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. So I'm going to call on people who haven't really spoken yet to give everybody a chance. And I'm going to add, I'm going to call on Lisa, but I'm going to ask you again, Lisa Flandrich, to please keep your question so that other people can ask questions as well, to 90 minutes. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Diane, can you start unmuting people, because I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes.
Yes, see, now we're losing our tech person, so you're going to have to be very careful with letting us do this, all right? So you're going to have to keep your questions very brief. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. I am asking this question for the 2,000 tiers as well as myself. Will the leadership find out what happens to the thousands of dollars in encumbered reserves for the cost of healthcare premiums when its PSC tier retiree nullifies their contract with New York City insurance benefits? Then we become a private retiree. And regarding the opt-in and out, why would New York City want us back? Why would they want to pay a reimbursement? They're not going to want us back. I want some information about those reserves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Can somebody take that question, either Debbie or maybe Dean? You have any?
I actually don't understand the question. I don't know if Debbie understands it better than me.
I think I do. Where am I? Do you hear me?
Yes.
There were actually two questions. One has to do with the annuitization that TIAA participants have to do when they retire to pay for their health insurance. This is an issue that's on the table for discussions between the union, CUNY, and TIAA. So there is not an answer to that, but the union is well aware of it. The second question that Lisa raised is, why would the city want anyone back? They don't have a choice, really. All retirees have earned the right to coverage. They will take people back. They have a process for, there are open enrollment periods. where you can move back into city coverage during November of a given year for the following January. There are open enrollment periods in federal Medicare. They don't have a choice. That's really the answer to that question.
Okay, Evie, do you have a question?
My question is directed to James, to Dean, to Debbie, and to Barbara Caress. I believe that the union, the PSC, has a responsibility to be creative in offering access to a Medigap supplementary plan apart from Aetna's Medicare Advantage. If 60,000 retirees opt out, I am confident that an insurance company out there will welcome the opportunity to enroll us and further to explore how we can get prescription drugs consistent with that offered by the welfare fund. So my question is, why is this not an alternative or option? If it is not, and why can't it be?
Okay, who would like to take that question for Evie?
I can start.
I'll do it. I think James has dropped off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, my position in this stuff is never say never. The union's not an insurance company.
Debbie's frozen, but I
Oh.
love.
Sorry.
No, she's not. I see her.
Okay, I'm putting my video off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am one who says never say never. The union's
Barely.
not an insurance company, so that's not an easy ask, Evie. Nevertheless, as we all explore what we need going forward, perhaps some opportunities will emerge. I do think that among the opportunities may be, I think the first instance should be pressuring the city to set up a supplemental / Medigap plan that retirees can go into premium free. I think we cannot drop that demand. So that while we could explore alternatives, they are long-range projects to do that and not likely to be and to develop anything feasible by September 1. And in addition, the other priority is for the welfare fund to explore with CUNY and for the union to bargain with CUNY and for the welfare fund trustees, which is a joint trusteeship, to address the issue of making sure all retirees continue to get their welfare fund benefits.
Donna, do you have something to add to that?
I do. I know that Evelyn, you cited 60,000 or 80,000, but of those 60,000, our retirees make up about 5,500. So that's only a small portion of the full retirees that the city is looking at. So it'd be difficult, and Dean or Debbie can attest to this. That's kind of what the MLC does. They put together all the unions to be able to draw programs. So there's just a lot of questions around it. Sounds like a great idea. It's just that there are a lot of questions about how legally it would be able to be done, especially since you would need an insurance carrier and somebody that would be able to, or a governing group that would be able to contract with them.
Okay, I see Jane Mushabach. Can you unmute yourself there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so is it customary for the great city of New York to contract with a company on a huge financial sale for a company that is currently under investigation? This is also, I gather, unless I'm wrong, a company that has lost its 4.5 rating with the federal government, and therefore as a 3.5 star rating recipient may not be eligible for the funding from Medicare that it is counting on. How can the city of New York contract with such a company? This seems untenable to me unless I have the facts wrong.
Thank you, Jane. Who would like to respond to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I agree, Jane. You know, there have been a lot of issues.
Dean, I think you've frozen. On my screen, you're frozen.
About Aetna and its Medicare Advantage program, there is the fact out there of allegations of improper.
Okay, Dean has frozen again.
Conduct by Aetna with the Medicare Advantage, and I agree that we should be raising with the looks at this contract. I think James alluded.
Okay, Dean, you seem to be going in and out. Debbie, can you read his mind and tell us what he was going to say?
I think he is agreeing with Jane's point. I think the PSC, when James testified in various public forums, has alluded to these questions. You know, the city sort of seems impervious to rational whatever. Medicare Advantage generally is undergoing a lot of questions, a lot of investigation, and you know, it's going to be, I think, a period of upheaval for Medicare Advantage plans for the next few years at least. So even that, why are we being forced to go into it? But the city is just barreling ahead.
Dean, now I still think you're frozen, so I'm not going to ask you to try again because you're still frozen. So I'm going to go over to Patricia Kenyon and ask her to unmute. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I received that mailing from the Office of Labor Relations and I looked at it. And one thing that jumped out at me was that under this Aetna Medicare Advantage plan, dental is not covered. And we currently, I think, I have traditional Medicare and welfare fund stuff and so on. I think the welfare fund does cover dental. I think I've used it. So this is a place where if the welfare fund coverage disappears, even the people in the Aetna Medicare Advantage are going to lose coverage.
Debbie?
Has anybody noticed that? Or am I missing something?
That is correct. The Medicare Advantage plan does not cover dental.
Yes.
But
Okay.
I think it should be clear that the welfare fund is not disappearing. It's only a problem for people who opt out, not for people who stay in.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that if you're in Medicare, it's only the opt-outs that would lose coverage. You'd still continue to get the welfare fund, prescription drugs, dental, optical, hearing benefits. I know that there's additional hearing and vision benefits. They would also be offered in addition to what the welfare fund provides.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, I'm going to
Can
on
folks
Bruce.
hear me?
Is that Dean? Is that you?
It's Dean, yeah.
And-
I just want to also just be very clear with folks that when we use the term opt out, we're using it somewhat broadly. So according to the city, your only opt out option is into the HIP VIP plan. So when we just talked about the potential for losing welfare fund benefits if you opt out, that was meaning if you make the choice to stay in traditional Medicare and buy your own Medigap plan, that's when, as the collective bargaining agreement and the welfare fund trust are currently drafted, you would be in danger of losing your welfare fund benefits. And again, just to reiterate, we are in conversations with the welfare fund and with CUNY about changing the language to protect welfare fund benefits for folks who do make the decision to keep their traditional Medicare and pay for Medigap.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, Bruce Brown.
Yeah, hi. Yes, thank you. I want to support Joel's comments about the political issues involved. I'm not going to address them. I'm looking forward to PSC sessions in the future where we get more information. I just want to talk about some specific questions right now. I understand, as we just said, if we opt out, we lose welfare fund benefits, except, as I understand it, for catastrophic major medical, the drug plan. I know we would lose dental. Am I right about that? We would not lose the drug plan. We would not lose catastrophic major medical. And what about long-term care? I have those three questions. And I also want to add one thing. I hope in the future, it's too much to get into now, that we could have an information session in which we could get information, more information about just what is wrong with the Medicare Advantage plan. I have philosophical reasons for opposing it because I believe in a single payer plan. But in terms of our real on the ground decisions that we have to make, what are our real risks with this plan? What things would we risk losing if we choose this Medicare Advantage plan? I've heard very different answers to that question, and I would like to get that clarified. I could go into it in more detail, but we don't have time.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to answer your second question and let Donna answer the benefits question, because what you described was not fully accurate. It may be for many retirees that the Medicare Advantage plan will be okay in terms of meeting their healthcare needs. I think a large proportion of this group probably agree with you concerning philosophical objections, but it may well be that most, if not all, providers that people on this call, in this forum see on a regular basis are covered in the network that Aetna is running. It's a large network in the New York City metropolitan area and actually in other metropolitan areas around the country. So it may be that it's not so terrible for many people. We can talk about some of the faults of some of the structural problems of Medicare Advantage in a different conversation, because there are many layers involved. So let me turn to Donna to answer your question about the benefits.
Yes. And somebody just put in what Dean was referring to. There are two New York City retiree accepted health benefits, and that's the Aetna and the HIP-VIP. For people who stay in those plans, you are entitled to welfare fund supplemental benefits, which is all of the benefits: prescription drugs, dental, vision, and hearing. For anyone who does not choose either the Aetna PPO or the HIP-VIP HMO, they will lose all of the welfare fund benefits, including prescription drugs. Is that helpful?
However, there are two benefits that Bruce raised: the catastrophic coverage and long-term care coverage that are not administered by the welfare fund.
That's correct.
It's the non-NICET catastrophic, right, Donna? The non-NICET catastrophic is not administered by the welfare fund, so you would not lose that. The John Hancock long-term care benefit is not administered by the welfare fund, so you would not lose that. Retirees on those two coverages pay directly to the provider.
Okay, thank you. I see Alan Houseman.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was at the last meeting and I thought I'm 1,000 miles away, so I can't attend the demonstrations. But I thought part of the point of the demonstration was to pressure the mayor on option C because he was making a decision by April 1st. So what's happened on that?
So the contract that the city entered into with Aetna provided that the city had to notify Aetna by April 1st what the city was choosing between three different options, options A, B, and C. We learned when we found the language of the actual contract that option C would have allowed the city to choose to continue to pay for Medicare supplemental coverage for people who chose to keep their traditional Medicare. The deadline under the contract for the city to choose option C has now passed. But what folks are saying on this call and what the union is saying is that that doesn't mean we're going to stop pressuring the mayor to create an opportunity for people to choose to keep their traditional Medicare and for the city to pay for Medicare supplemental coverage. So the time under the contract has passed, but we believe the political window isn't closed and we're going to keep fighting. It would mean the city would have to ask Aetna to agree to change the contract at this point, but we are not ready to stop fighting on the issue of people's right to keep their traditional Medicare and to have Medicare supplemental coverage that the city pays for.
Okay, thank you, Dean. And now I just want to tell you all that it's a little after 3 and we're willing to stay longer, obviously, but we really are going to lose some people a little bit after like around 3:30-ish. So what I'd like to do, if that's okay, is the last hand up I see is Len Rodberg. So just like the cashier in Stop and Shop, I'm going to ask, if Len be the last person, we're going to continue along. We have about 5 or 6 hands. I'll continue along in order and just ask if Len be the last question for the people who now have to leave in a little while. Okay, so I see Pat Eglund. Can you please unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi.
I retired at the age of 62 in March of 2021 from CUNY. I do not turn 65 until the day the new Medicaid Advantage plan takes effect, September 1st. I'm not Medicare eligible. I'm just terrified that I'm going to automatically get enrolled in straight Medicare because I have dependents on my welfare fund. And no one can really give me an answer as to what I should do. Aetna can't give me an answer. I've reached out to PSC. I really can't get a straight answer.
So, Pat, I had asked Michael Foley from the Welfare Fund to reach out to you just to discuss the situation. I believe what the city is going to do is automatically enroll newly 65-year-old people in Medicare Advantage, which would mean you remain in city coverage. The city will not throw you off city coverage. But Donna, do you want to add to that? Okay, then I'll pass it to Donna.
Pat, yes. First of all, you need to enroll in Medicare Part A and B. You should do that. Really, it's April, May. You said September you turn 65? Yes. So you should do that. I believe it's 60 days before you turn 65. You need to be enrolled in A and B, regardless of whether you're going to opt in or not. One of the prerequisites for the Medicare Advantage is that you enroll in A and B. So if you haven't already done that, you should absolutely do that.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Bill Friedheim, can you ask your question?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I have some information that I want to impart. Since Debbie mentioned that I would be putting material on the website, that's what I want to talk about very briefly. We're going to create a page, maybe as early as late this afternoon, that will focus on what you need to know to make a decision. Debbie has sent me some material to put on the page, which I'll probably put up there this afternoon. But as Debbie and Dean and others have pointed out, there are just lots of moving parts to this and constant changes. That page then will be updated constantly, maybe even day to day. So the website will continue to have a page, what's happening with retiree healthcare, that will mainly focus on one track, namely the continuing resistance and organization, and then a second page, which I just mentioned, what you need to know to make a decision. And there'll be a link to that page from the retirees chapter webpage, from the What's Happening to Retiree Healthcare page. And I'm sure that Ann and Diane and Bonnie, when they send out the next email blast, will also give you a link to that page. So look for that.
Thank you, Bill. Charles Gorgie. Can you unmute yourself, Charles?
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, well, a couple of things, quick things. First, I wanted to know who can one contact if one still has unanswered questions after this presentation? Who can one call or write or whatever to get answers to any questions we don't have time to ask? And the second one is, you mentioned about being able to go back and forth. If you opt out, you can go back to Advantage, or, you know, you can go back and forth. But how many times can you do that and still, I mean, at some point, the pre-existing conditions become an issue? Do you go into pre-existing condition risk if you opt around too many times?
Okay, thank you, Charles. So Debbie, can you answer that question?
I don't think, it depends where you live. So the main thing about pre-existing conditions and Medigap plans is it depends where you live, because the states set the rules for who is eligible to be in a Medigap plan. That's number one. Number two, as far as I know, and that it's only that, I don't believe you're penalized for going back and forth. I will pose that question and try to get a more solid answer, but I don't believe that either the federal government or the city will penalize people for going back and forth during the appropriate periods when you can make choices.
And about someone to contact, maybe.
And someone to contact. One thing is to put questions in the chat while we still have 15, 20 minutes. I will try to answer questions that show up in the chat after today's meeting. There will continue to be, as I said, there are Aetna sessions you can attend. You can call Aetna and ask your questions. And I'm going to throw it to Dean or Donna as to. Yeah.
I will, if for specific, if you have specific questions, some people have specific questions, like I'm going into the hospital, that pertain just to them, I would first reach out. There is an Aetna number you can call. If you need an advocate, you've reached out, they're not giving you the information, they're not understanding what you're asking, send an email to communications@pscunywf.org, and we will try to get some information back to you or get you a better contact number to help. But they should be questions, you know, not, they should, if they're specific to something that you have, and not all the other information I think is on the websites. But if there's something that's confusing.
Maybe Donna, you could put that into our chat.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Right,
David
so
Miller.
no, before you go on, sorry, just to
Oh, sorry.
summarize.
Yes, Dean.
So the answer is it depends on the kind of question that you have, right? So as Donna was saying, if your question is about what Aetna covers or doesn't cover, what providers are in their network or not, that's a question for Aetna in the first instance. And what Donna is saying is if Aetna doesn't answer your question, then you should reach out to Michael Foley, who's the Welfare Fund's Communications Director. If your question is about political strategy, it's really the leadership of the retiree chapter that Ava and I and James and others are supporting. And so I think folks who have questions about our political strategy should go to the retiree leadership in the first instance, and then they are feeling very free to reach out to me and to Ava and to James and to Debbie and Barbara Bowen and others for advice on the strategy. If it's not neither of those two things, for example, if it's a question about TIAA or what's going to happen with welfare fund benefits, you can reach out to me. But I will tell you that the answer is going to be, we're working on those things. I think the answer in terms of the welfare fund benefits is going to be probably quicker than the TIAA answer. But just to let you know, now we're actively working on addressing both of those kinds of questions.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, I see David Miller.
Yes, I have a quick question. When this started 2 years ago, they proposed the Medicare Advantage. We called all of our doctors up in Dutchess County and NYU, Columbia, and HHS. Everyone said they never heard of it. It hasn't started yet. When we get information about it, perhaps we'll take it. So we opted out, and we're going to pay $190 a month. Now there is no opt-out. There is no GHI senior care. Does this plan exist? Will people know about it? If we call HHS, Columbia, our doctors in the city, our doctors in Dutchess County, oh yes, we take the New York City Medicare Advantage plan. We know all about it and we're going to take it. Does the plan exist yet? Or do we have to wait till after September to find out that we're screwed?
So the straightforward answer is, does the plan exist yet? No, but Aetna is a little more anticipatory than the old plan was. They have been doing outreach to providers. They do have a network that's in place already, and they have been seeking to add providers to it. They have on the Office of Labor Relations website, I think, there is a brochure for providers that they are encouraging retirees to take to their providers and say, here's what the plan is going to be. I want you to join it so you can be covered by it. So I can be covered by it and still see you. And I do know that Aetna is reaching out to providers who are not yet in their network, but who show up as serving New York City retirees through senior care. So technically speaking, the plan doesn't exist until September 1st. And therefore, we will all continue to get, I don't know, I never heard about it from a lot of providers. The first thing is to look on the Aetna website to see if the provider is listed. They claim they have all the hospitals in the New York City region except in the network, except Stony Brook, and that Stony Brook accepts Aetna Medicare rates. It's a tricky business. I'm not going to sell Aetna based on their claims, but I think they are doing a better job, A, of having a website that indicates whether they think your provider's in the network, and B, of reaching out to providers ahead of time to describe what the plan is and encourage them to join it.
Thank you, Debbie. I see Barbara Backer.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. There are many of us who do not live in the New York City area. I am moving to Rochester, New York in June. Do I have any hope of anybody there accepting this program if it doesn't even exist here in the city? I mean, is it called the New York City Aetna program, or is it just Aetna Medicare Advantage? I'm kind of lost as to what to do with that.
So again, go to the Office of Labor Relations website and look at the materials that are on there. They are Aetna produced materials. My gut tells me that moving to Rochester, you're not in bad shape. Rochester has a strong healthcare system, and probably Aetna has providers there, both doctors and hospitals. But you've got to go on the Aetna website and check it out. And if they're not there, call Aetna and say, I'm moving there. I need to know who's there, what doctors are there, what hospitals can I use, blah, blah, et cetera. It's tedious, but insofar as you're concerned about whether you will have continuity of care, I think I'm doing this myself. I think it's work we have to do to really try to hold them accountable to ensuring that the providers they claim will be in the network are really there.
Thank you, Debbie. I see Antonella Ansani.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so
I think it's realistic to assess that we are much better, much worse off now than we were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was feasible to opt out because the amount of money at play was, for some people, feasible, but now it's really unfeasible to think that it would cost so much money to go back and stay on Medicare traditional and get out of having to be out of the welfare fund, not being reimbursed for Medicare Part B or for the other thing that we can be reimbursed. I think that a lot of people, and at least people that I spoke to, would be very happy to go back to the original proposal where you could opt out paying $191 a month. Is there any chance that that can happen?
So I'll take that one. So as you'll recall, the retirees sued, and one of the arguments that was made was that it was against the law for the city to charge a premium for people to keep their supplemental coverage under a provision of the city code that required the city to pay for city-sponsored coverage up to the HIP HMO rate. The retirees won that part of the lawsuit, and the judge said, no, the way the statute is written, the city does have to pay for whatever supplemental coverage it chooses to offer. So the city responded to that through an arbitrator's decision, which said that the city was from now on only going to offer the Medicare Advantage and then the one opt-out option that they've offered, which is the HIP VIP HMO. The mayor and the municipal labor committee pushed for a change in the law that would have taken the floor out from under the city's obligation to contribute to the cost of health insurance coverage for both retirees and their dependents and for all active workers. If that had passed, the city would not have had any kind of legal obligation to contribute any money at all to the cost of health insurance for either retirees or for active workers. And that was not something the PSC would support. So we are continuing to push for the city to pay for supplemental Medicare coverage for retirees so people can keep their traditional Medicare. But again, as folks are now fully aware, the city is saying that's off the table right now.
Thank you, Dean. I see Adina Schwartz. Can you unmute yourself, Adina?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Am I unmuted? Okay, I'm puzzled about two things. One, I don't understand how one can say that it's safe for anybody our age to go into the Aetna plan when they specifically say that prior authorization will be required for quote unquote inpatient stays, skilled nursing facility stays, long-term acute care stays, acute physical rehabilitation stays. And that's something none of us wants to think could happen to us, but it can happen. And inpatient stays happen to lots of folks, even folks in good health. And if you think prior authorization is easy to get, I don't have the article to hand, but I think it was Kaiser Health Service has a posting about how AI, which is supposed to be a rough guideline, is used to deny people, reputable insurers, care for routine, get them out of nursing homes when they can't even walk or feed themselves. So I think it's a real threat. Now, I think the real threat, people have to realize that under law, at least New York State law, yes, you are protected. New York State says, regardless of pre-existing conditions, you have to be let in to a Medigap plan, and you can't be charged extra. But the kicker is under federal law, if you've been out of a Medigap plan for more than 63 days, for up to 6
Please wrap it up, Adina.
Yes, for up to 6 months, that Medigap plan will not cover, is allowed not to cover any condition for which you've been diagnosed or treated for the 6 months before you were enrolled. So in other words, if you're in Medicare Advantage, you get sick, you go into the hospital, you say, oh, save me, I'll go into Medigap. Sorry, it will be 6 months
Time, Medina,
before the
please.
stay is covered.
Okay, Debbie, you want to do that one?
I'm not going to contradict Adina. There are, if you end up in the hospital for an emergency, prior authorization is required. I'm not going to defend Medicare Advantage and how they work. There are bunches of problems, and she's identified, particularly in the sort of nursing facility locations where retirees are less able to navigate things for themselves, vis-a-vis skilled nursing and rehab, et cetera. These are undoubtedly problems, and it is, yeah. I just, I agree, Adina.
Dean, do you have any helpful additions to that one?
No, I don't.
All right, Len, Rodberg, can you unmute yourself?
Yep. Okay. All right. I put into the chat an article that explains why Medicare Advantage is deficient. It's basically cut rate medicine. They don't have enough money to take care of you when you're sick, which is really what Adina is talking about. My question is related to the welfare fund benefits. I looked at the contract. There are two provisions on when you're eligible. One is explicit, that you have to be in a city health plan. The other says nothing about a city health plan. It just says you have to be in TIAA and have been in that for a while and accepted various kinds of TIAA related benefits and be over 55 years old. Have the lawyers determined that that doesn't protect us so that we still have the welfare fund benefits?
Dean or Debbie?
So, sorry, you cut out at the beginning of your question, Lynn, but my understanding is that you're asking about whether or not it's correct that the way our contract with CUNY is written and the way the Welfare Fund Trust Indenture is written, people who choose to keep their traditional Medicare and pay for their own supplemental coverage will lose their welfare fund benefits. Is that basically the question? Yeah, the answer is, yeah, that is what the contract and the Welfare Fund Trust Indenture currently say.
Well, Section B doesn't say that. That's why I was asking.
Section B doesn't include TRS people either. And
Right.
the trust indenture definitely says it doesn't have the or in the trust indenture. And the welfare fund is governed by both documents. So they both have to be corrected.
Okay, okay, I think that's going to have to do. I'm going to ask Bruce and Jane, who had a chance to speak before, to put your questions in the chat, and somebody can get back to you on that, because we're going to lose our speakers. It's 3:25. So I'm going to thank all of our speakers for coming and helping us with some of these very difficult questions. Thank you all for coming today. I know it's a very hard decision, but you do have some resources to ask us if you can just either use the link that I think Bonnie put in the chat and or put it into the chat, and somebody hopefully would be able to answer your questions. Unless Dean and Debbie have anything final to say, I think we'll adjourn.
I just want to say, this is a work in progress. There's political work that has to be done. There's activism work that has to be done. There are questions that need to be answered. And we will work very hard to get you answers. I know the union's planning to work very hard to create an environment of pressure on both the mayor and, quite frankly, the city council, once the budget's done, to recognize what a big mistake this is.
Okay, thank you, Debbie, and hopefully we'll see you all very soon at either an action or our next meeting next month. Okay, and keep your eye out for our newsletter, Turning the Page, which hopefully should get to your houses very soon. If not, you can go onto the website. I think Bill will put it up there and you can access the issue that way. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you soon.